about 4 minutes after 10. And I've asked Supervisor Klein if he'd lead us in the pledge. If you'd all stand, please. Thank you. Okay, fair warning, short agenda, long meeting. Item 2A is information and discussion to consider the implementation of a local court fee schedule, which, if approved, would be effective in fiscal year 26. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you very much for this opportunity today. Often we come before you with a complicated package in one meeting and ask you to take action. So I'm grateful that we have the opportunity to discuss it in a work session format. I'm really looking for input, feedback, thoughts, concerns, criticism. And so I'll go into some...
Well, thank you, John. And I'll just admonish the other supervisors, just jump in whenever you'd like. It is a work session.
Absolutely.
So
if you want somebody to know something or know nothing, then tell them everything. And so I'm going to try to keep this presentation into bite-sized chunks to show you how we arrived at the conclusion to make the request for a local court fee schedule. So the courts operate under a coordinated courts budget. Administrative Order 2017-79 for the Supreme Court requires that the presiding judge submit a coordinated budget to the Board of Supervisors that encompasses budgetary requests from justice courts, Superior Court, the Clerk of Court, juvenile and adult probation. So we've operated under that format for a number of years. Rule 93 of the Supreme Court rules requires that the court administrator drafts that budget. And so it's primarily budgetary concerns that have brought us to the point of making this request to you today. We're always conscious of impositions to the general fund. For example, in 2016, all of the court groups used to have their own IT department while the county was operating an IT department. We consolidated that as a duplication of services. There was no need to impose those extra expenses we felt on the general fund. 2017, thereabouts, we closed down the Juvenile Detention Center. We also used the coordinated courts budget to meet the county's budgetary expectations. We meet with the manager of finance and they give us the plan. With the coordinated budget, we have the ability, some flexibility within the departmental requests so that we can guarantee that we live up to what the county expects of us on an annual basis. For example, I'll give you an example of that, not the complete history, but in 2014, my first year in court administration, the county asked us to make a 5% budgetary reduction. That would be demanding, perhaps, to one department or even a series of departments, but because we operate under the coordinated structure, we were able to leverage that out without compromising service or operations throughout our entire court groups. 2015, we were asked to absorb a total of $1.4 million in personnel expenses that were the result of a classification and compensation study at that time. And again, that's another example of the flexibility within the coordinated courts budget. However, we are experiencing some business pressures. I think we're all familiar with the term unfunded mandates. That's what we're looking at here. In two areas primarily, we have seen the heaviest impact. And that is in court automation, where we consistently run what they call the e-suite, which means e-filing, which is paperless filings. We don't have file folders anymore. The judge has to be able to access all of those documents. That's e-bench, another automated function that we've had. Digital evidence. I've been before this board seeking grant funding to equip our courtrooms for digital evidence before. And we're running a lot of audio-visual tech in our courtrooms. We stream to YouTube just like you do for your board meetings. We have remote appearances all the time. We do a lot of in-custody stuff with the jail, so they don't have to make transports. So that's the demand that automation has placed on us just recently within the past few years, really since COVID. Another area, another unfunded mandate is court security. So in 2017, the Supreme Court released an administrative order detailing about 30 court security standards. Those are mandated. We've worked with county administration and facilities and other groups to comply with those requirements. There's still a few outstanding. Most of the heavy lifting has been done, but we still have some stuff that we need to work on to bring ourselves into full compliance with all of our courts. These pressures, I think, threaten to disrupt our coordinated budget, which has turned in flat operating expenses really since 2014 or 2015. There are potential solutions to mitigate that without making impositions on the general fund. A couple of areas that we've identified are the management of expenses, obviously, and the identification of new revenue sources. As far as the management of expenses, I've given you a few examples already, and I'll just state that we continue to scrutinize every line item for all of those departments that comes in front of us prior to making a coordinated budget request to the board. We've also been able to identify some new revenue sources, and that's kind of the meat and potatoes of why I'm in front of you today. Sure.
Because they're having a hard time hearing you, so I'm going to get the microphone. See if that helps.
Thank you. Is that better? Okay. I won't run through the whole thing again.
Oh, thank you.
So, new revenue sources, local court fees. Courts can establish local court fees with Supreme Court approval and board approval via resolution. Our courts currently have 3 local fees. I can tell you, compared to other counties, that's relatively modest. Cochise County, for example, has over 10. Maricopa County has several. Pima County has 6. So we're not, we don't have a very aggressive local court fee schedule in place right now. The local fees that we do have is cost of prosecution, which is a split revenue source with the county attorney's office, court administration, my unit, and the clerk of court's office. We have the local probate fund, which provides funding for experts and professional attorney services in guardianship and conservatorship cases. And we have a justice court enhancement fund, which I brought through this board in 2019, I believe. We are asking to do 2 things with the fee schedule, subject to your input, of course. We would like to increase the probate and the justice court fees. The probate fee was established in 2006 and has never had an adjustment to it whatsoever. The justice court enhancement fee is $20. Pretty modest, and that was a pre-COVID figure. And then speaking with our elected justices of the peace, they were interested in increasing that fee. And we'd like to establish 2 new fees. Two new fees, not surprisingly, are in the areas that I recognize pressure. We're looking at an automation fee that would be split with the clerk of court's office. And we're looking at a security fee, which would be available to all courts, and any of the expenses from that fee would be subject to written approval from the presiding judge, and we'd of course coordinate with county administration and county facilities on how those funds might be utilized. The fee proposal that I anticipate, or I would like to bring before this board, is not radical. These fees exist in other counties. Now, not everything that's right for other counties is right for Gila, and you will let us know that, but we felt that these were fees that address the immediate pressures that we're seeing, and they have been accepted by other boards of supervisors in other counties. The automation fee would be a $20, and I attached summary sheets for both of the new fees, and I used very low-end estimates, and so we modeled them at a low cost. I didn't want to put big numbers in there without talking to you first. The court automation fee would generate approximately $25,000. It would be a $20 fee assessed on top of civil case filings. The security fee is the exact same security fee that's in Graham County right now. Our numbers are slightly different. The security fee in Graham County assesses $10 on every criminal or civil traffic disposition sentence, and that fee, applying those numbers to Gila, would be about 20 grand. One more note on the proposed local fee schedule: it's not overly onerous. The filing fees are not going to prevent anybody from accessing justice in Gila County. Filing fees in both the Justice Court and, if applied, in the Superior Court are subject to fee deferral and waiver provisions that currently exist within the Code of Judicial Administration. If you want to bring your case in Gila County, you're not going to be priced out. The criminal disposition fees, the security fee in this example, that is subject to the discretion of the judge as to the imposition of that fee. So that is the fee proposal in a nutshell, and I'd like to hear any thoughts or questions that you might have.
Thank you, John. Supervisor Humphrey, anything?
Okay, these fees, who will pay these fees?
The users of the services, court users, in the instance of the filing fees. A lot of civil cases in Superior Courts are filed by attorneys. Of course, their clients always bear costs as well, but again, it wouldn't prohibit anybody from filing a civil case with us. In the other instances, the security fee, that is tacked on to criminal defendants as part of their sentencing or sanctions.
Okay, yeah, because I was going to say, some of these that use our court system, who's going to collect these fees?
Sure.
So if it's the filing, then I can better understand it. And the security fees, does that include the security at the front door?
It could. I had
I
mentioned
mean,
this
because
to-
that's a big cost that was brought to the county because of our courts, to protect our courts, that was mandated by the state. And so it's like, oh, okay, big brother, thanks for putting this burden on us, when I don't see that it's, all our burden to carry. And so, that could help our,
Couldn't agree more.
yeah, that could help, our budget, our money,
Sure.
our tax-based money, from not, paying the fees that are from the court. And so, yeah, if that could, then I would, I would like to see that be at a point where it could maybe help with that cost.
Yeah, I will disclose to the board that I had talked with County Manager Minlove on a number of occasions about this fee proposal, and that was one of the very options that we discussed.
Yeah, yeah, because we love to put a service out there, but it costs us.
Yeah,
And so, yeah,
that's not a
anything
small
that
one
we
either.
can do to help that, and, and like you say, the people that are coming to use the court, that's something that I appreciate you bringing these up to a work session, for our awareness of these things. So, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, Jonathan, by setting these fees and working with these fees, that'll bring the courts up to kind of where you need to be financially, and not quite so.
Yes, I do
bogged down.
honestly believe that. We do have tremendous flexibility with the coordinated structure of the court's budget. We can reallocate resources to where the actual demands are. It's just security and automation are threatening our framework. We only make general fund budget requests for absolutely fundamental operations. We have other special revenue sources which might be limited to certain services and can't be spent across the board. And I do really believe, I've been working with this budget since 2014. I've actually made pitches for local court fees before, and never been able to get the support I needed at the Supreme Court level. And sharing basically the same presentation with them that I just shared with you all, we were able to get there. So what I am seeking is not an abundance of money, but I'd like to see my coordinated courts budget be sustainable for the next 10 years. And I think this will greatly help us reach that goal.
Well, thank you for putting the time and thought into this, and what you've proposed here seems to me to be real reasonable, and looks like, I don't know why it can't be done, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, John, for the presentation. So I'm kind of a proponent that would support users paying for the product or the service that they're using. We do that with community development, landfill, and others. So a lot of, some of the burden on all these departments is shared equally throughout the county. But if you're not using the service, you shouldn't have to contribute to it at a large amount. So I totally support the fees, and these seem like really low numbers to me. But if you feel that that's what you'd like to offer, then I feel I can support that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fine line. You know, I'll give you an example of something that we couldn't get behind. Obviously, when we developed these proposals, I mentioned I'd been down this road before and didn't have the support I needed from the Chief Justice to get their approval, but we studied models in all these other counties, and the two new fees, as I mentioned, are the exact same thing in other jurisdictions. But Coconino County, for example, charges an $85 assessment fee on all of their civil and family law filings. That's something that I wouldn't bring to this board. I agree with you entirely, Mr. Chairman. I think there is room for, perhaps a slightly more aggressive program here. But we didn't want it to be onerous to the citizens of Gila, like some of the other examples. I mean, you want to file a civil case in Maricopa County, it's going to cost you like $300+. That certainly wasn't right for Gila, and nothing that we would ever bring to this board.
Well, one thing that I've noticed is if we delay the increases long enough, then it becomes much more of a problem, because we're literally absorbing the loss over these years, and then we say, well, we got to jump it up, and we had to do that with the landfill. And it's better to me to say, look, we need to adjust the fees and the schedules and all of that every couple of years or so.
Yeah.
And we need to do that with community development. I think that we're way behind on that too. And there's, then it becomes a big jump, and then everybody, hollers about the big jump. When they've been living pretty comfortable for the last maybe 10 years on fees that should have gone up.
Yeah, I agree.
So, any other thoughts here? Oh, Jessica.
Chairman, member supervisors, Mr. Barup, I did hear you mention an allocation in regard to the needs, assessing the needs when they come. But just for clarification for the public, I just want to clarify that the fund increase is intended to cover the cost of the actual service. So, for example, security, the fee increase is intended to cover the cost of security.
It is, and the statute requires that we use these funds to defray those expenses, so that's the exact intention.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. Anything else?
No, I'm fine, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jonathan, very much.
I just had one more, Jonathan. The security service you use in your courts is the same as we got at the front door? Same company? Is that right?
Yeah, it is, in both locations, Payson and Globe, same contractor.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Okay, good. Item 2B. Information, discussion regarding pending legislation addressing rural groundwater management. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the board. So today there's a group of residents from northern Gila County that are here to sort of present some information about rural groundwater possible legislation, future legislation ideas. And I'm gonna go ahead and introduce Miss Chris Ray, who's the first speaker from the group.
Okay,
So, thank you.
thank you. Good morning, Chris. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Mr. Chairman. How are you?
Very good.
Good. Honorable Board of Supervisors, I want to thank you for hearing us today. Okay. There we go. Okay, sorry, I wasn't sure. What we've come to discuss is in regards to the state authority about groundwater and the proposed legislation that we actually have.
There we go.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Okay. We would ask, we have a lot of information that we're going to go through, and so we would ask that you would hold your questions to the question and answer, if you would, please. Okay. Why is this important, and why should we care as Gila County when we're speaking about this? Excuse me, I apologize. On the state authority, this means the state or local level cannot operate in isolation. Let's face it, we in Gila County, we like being a rural county, and we enjoy that. But we have to consider what Arizona State and our policies will actually do and might impact national security, and we're going to go into that. We are in an interconnected world now. The governor's executive order, she has recently signed some, and what that is it's treated as law. State agencies, they will implement that. Here's an example. Remember COVID, all of us? Governor Ducey wrote over 45 executive orders that were implemented in our state and in our county in regards to COVID. Remember, masks, schools closed, those types of things. So they are treated as a law until either a governor deletes it, overrides it. Also, if it's suspended, if the state actually, legislation actually enacts a law. Okay. Next one. The governor has vast powers, and as we've been looking at these laws, we've seen how that actually is. And even though they're executive orders, they are implied as law in regards to that. And all state agencies will enact those. Groundwater. One of the things that we found in our research is that groundwater can be taken as legitimate public use under state law. And here's an example of eminent domain. We just had this in the last 6 months in Pine Strawberry with Pine Strawberry Water Improvement District. And they actually declared eminent domain for their deep well in regards to that. So the reason we bring that up is because it does mention this in some of the legislation that we have been researching. Okay, this is quite a slide that we have. I don't know, a lot of people, I didn't realize it till we started researching. Arizona has moved into the 21st century as a leader in AI, advanced mobility, clean energy, and chip manufacturing. We have the largest chip manufacturer in the world in Phoenix now. We have a total of 105 of those at this time in the state of Arizona. And in regards to them, it takes 1 million gallons of water in order for them to fill and start fabricating. And they reuse, but just to start off, it's 1 million gallons of water. Governor Hobbs just recently announced, and it is on her webpage, space station. Have you heard of it? Yuma, it is on her webpage. She announced it. And They are planning on setting up a Cape Canaveral, a Houston in Yuma. And one liftoff, just for that one liftoff, takes 500,000 gallons of water for that liftoff in regards to it. So these are some of the reasons. If you go on and you start looking at Title 45, which is in regards to the powers of the water director, in regards to that, he controls decision-making on all waterways, all watersheds, surface water, groundwater, groundwater basins. He cooperates with the United States of America in anything that they may need in the way of water or decisions about water, such as the Colorado River. And he has the decision, the final decision on all land, right-of-way, and water rights. Okay, in regards to that, essentially, on Title 45, about the director, he has all authority, and it's all spelled out in Arizona Title 45 in regards to that. And so we're going to continue. I'll step away.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Carolyn Epler, if you didn't know.
The right button? Yes. Okay. I'm Carolyn Appler. I'm also a concerned citizen and resident of Gila County. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members, for giving us the time to talk about this. Let's see. As an example, the current legislation, Senate Bill 1425, is the focus of today, but strictly as an example, there's been over 100 bills that have come across the table, as Chairman Christensen shared with us the other day. He has had a chance to look at several of those. The main thing that we noticed is probably more than half of these bills, the language in these bills, has been very beneficial to Gila County. The other part of that, though, however, is they have got language that's more focused on the issues in other counties. But this is a bill that's intended to actually affect the entire state. So those guardrails and things that are missing with the language that's more specific to what's going on in the other counties is the big concern, and what we'd like to kind of cover a little bit today to make you more aware of what we've been finding. And you probably heard the 30th of January, Governor Hobbs announced that we have a Rural Groundwater Management Act of 2025. That's how she referred to it. She's told the state legislative body that if they can't come to an agreement, she plans to actually initiate an executive order to implement this act. There's a rural water working group that is not sanctioned, but it's a fairly large group of individuals and also some other county supervisors that have been participating in it, working with a gentleman named Chris Kuzdas, who oversees most of it. He is also working very closely with the governor. So there's a lot of influence in that group, and it's given the three of us, Shirley, myself, and Chris, an opportunity staying on track with the proposals, the comments, the issues that keep coming to the table that cause this constant change and revision. The problem is a lot of those are staying in the last three bills that we looked at. So impacts to Gila County, this is a very short summary. There's a council that's proposed. If a rural groundwater management area is selected either by the governor or even the Department of Water Resources director, if he sees, based on the data he has, there may be a need. The governor just recently created an AMA, Active Management Area, in Wilcox. There was no vote. It was executive order. and that stays the way it is, and that was in large part because of the water table problems down there. The law that they're looking at now that she's referring to as the Rural Groundwater Management Act of 2025, that would immediately change what's happening in Wilcox from an active management area, which has significant water management restrictions in groundwater, to a rural groundwater management area, which is not as restrictive, but still very similar. And for Gila County, because we are so different, you know, environmentally, ecologically, our population, the topography, the weather, everything is quite different in Gila County. A lot of what most of our state legislators are looking at is their knowledge of other counties, not so much Gila County. So if this RGMA Act passes, it will create storage and use restrictions. Anybody that has more than one residential well will have to monitor, because they don't want you to go over 35 gallons a minute or 10 acre feet a year, which is about the same. It would affect your ability as county supervisors to fully implement your legal obligations on land management decisions. What we've seen so far is they're not using the best available science that we would hope they would use to address water issues, especially if they're going to do it statewide and impact what you've already got in place for Gila County. And the one thing that I saw that would be a huge concern is there's no guardrails in the current language in this SB 1425 and its mirrored House bill that would control the sale or lease of water rights. And we've seen this across the state where our water situation, our groundwater situation is dire in some places. The town of Queen Creek had a company go outside of the county to buy property that had really good water rights. They're now using the water rights from a whole other county to provide water to Queen Creek. That's done. Buckeye, the same thing. There was we had heard there is 1 acre of land in a separate county, not where Buckeye is. They purchased for several $1 million just for the water rights. So, of course, as citizens, we don't want that to happen in Gila County. And is there a way you can prevent that? You know, those are things that we're hoping by just sharing with you what we've located in the data, what we found in conversations and meetings, that we can start thinking about to find some solutions to protect us. You know, there's always that eminent domain, but I think if there's a way that we can demonstrate the needs of Gila County and take a harder look at other options rather than just going out and buying land. Can we stop that in Gila County? Can we put restrictions on who the purchase of land in Gila County so that there isn't a well that's dug that's going to take more than 35 gallons a minute? They can do that under restrictions, but right now there's no restrictions anywhere except for active management areas, and those are primarily the urban areas in the central part of the state. So the bulk of our rural country in Arizona, including Gila County, does not have restrictions on groundwater use. We just get a permit to dig a well. This slide here is a sample of the current bill's idea of how a council would be formed if they declare a rural groundwater management area. And the other thing that the governor created was restrictions on how the size of these groundwater management areas. Everywhere else in the state, they can't go smaller than a subbasin. But in northern Gila County, there's not that restriction. So that opens the door for more possibilities of somebody coming in that lives in Gila County that may see a concern on a groundwater issue, that it could be much smaller area, like a watershed, a small watershed or something like that. And they could use 10% of the voting population in that area to create a petition for the Department of Water Resources Director to create this new level of government. As citizens, we've already experienced what the three of you, as our Board of Supervisors, have done to manage this county, and this county's been very successful for decades. And we see that, and we find that another layer of government could create some serious problems with how we function as a county now. This is just one example of what's in the current law that Governor Hobbs used to declare that we will have a Rural Groundwater Management Act of 2025. This is requiring measuring devices on individual residential wells if you have more than 35 gallons a minute or more than 10 acre feet a year out of that well. So all of us that have one single residential well, it's typically 10 acre feet a year or 35 gallons a minute is what that well produces. You don't have to monitor at this time. And even if this law goes into effect, however, if you have more than one property, that puts you more than what's typically available with one well. And you would have to monitor. Something else that a lot of folks don't know, the Department of Water Resources has over 1,450 wells that are monitored across the state. They get a lot of their data from NASA satellite data. There is a lot of telemetry involved, and a lot of these wells are actually manually read. And they're looking for the change in water level over time, looking at the depth to the water table, those kinds of things. But they're keeping track of it. And the other thing that comes into what Chris Ray shared about the national aspect of it for the state, which ultimately affects us as a county, is how they look at groundwater. And it is considered part of the national critical infrastructure. So knowing we've got this new Taiwan semiconductor facility and several other IT chip companies in the state, you know, our hope is they won't end up finding a need to come to Gila County to take our groundwater, but that's a possibility. And that's why we're trying to follow this and stay more closely involved. In some of the data sets, and this is, I asked the question, is the median enough? Because if you look at what I'm going to show you next, here, this is a very busy map. I'm just going to tell you, take a look at the upper right. That's the Little Colorado River Plateau. This is an example of the data sets our state Department of Water Resources is using. And if you look there to the legend, the yellow is most of the rural areas. So based on their own data, they're showing that the wells in our rural parts of our state, including the Gila County area, are fairly stable. So the change in their monitoring wells isn't just between 1 foot from zero, between a negative foot declining or increasing by a foot. And all those areas that are blue are primarily blue because they're being recharged with Colorado River water. But the challenge is, when you look at that, you see the little round dots that are in that upper right larger area. That's actually a sub-basin, the Little Colorado River Plateau. Just above us, Gila County gets a lot of our groundwater that drops down from that basin. But they're only using 31 wells in that entire area. That's 26,000 square miles. And they're using that data. That's what they're presenting to our state legislators and to the public, is this kind of data. Using the medium information, you could have 31 wells that are dropping down 40 feet, some of them, and some of them on this instance have actually increased in their water table up 20 feet over the last 20 years. But if you only look at the two middle numbers, which is the median, that does not tell you as county supervisors what's really going on that landscape.
I know Chris wanted us to hold some questions till later, but I'm not going to right now. So, with all due respect, but Carolyn, let me ask you a question, because you got the map up, if I want to ask. But when you look at the Little Colorado Plateau up there, a lot of that is Navajo Nation.
Yes.
And a lot of it is the Apache County and reservation there and whatnot. So is that why the little red dots are down there on that lower edge? Is that mostly in Navajo County?
That,
Or-
yes. Yeah, they don't have any wells currently on the reservation that they're monitoring.
Okay, so let me ask you this, is because of reservations are considered sovereign, they have sovereignty, the state really doesn't have any control over their water use per se. That's why the big fight has been going on with White Mountain Apaches, the water San Carlos Apaches, and so forth between them and the state and the users over here, right?
But there was a Supreme Court ruling in 2023, and this was more specific to the Navajo Nation and a couple of the tribes in New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
But the language in that ruling, in that Supreme Court ruling, actually more cemented what already exists. And that's that the state of Arizona is the ultimate control of management of all waters in the state over SRP and over the tribes.
Okay.
So that actually helped Arizona,
Mm-hmm.
that ruling did. So that was a bonus for us. But as you know, with anything, it takes time to implement, even Supreme Court ruling. But, you know, what's concerning to the three of us right now, based on what we've learned the last several sessions at the state legislature and the last several years that we've been looking at this, is the information that our state is using right now to make decisions, and what Governor Hobbs is using to back her plan to implement this 2025 law, the Rural Groundwater Management Act. And, you know, the data that they have, there's a significant amount of data. And it's just like with statistics, you know, you can use what you need to get what you want done. But this is just a close-up of that big map. You can see a little bit better the wells. Now they've got data from all those wells. You know, the depth to water and change over time. This particular set of data where I've got all the red zeros and the minus 10s and 30s, that's a 20-year period of time showing the change in the water level. And they're looking at the entire state. This is information they're using to make decisions, and we're included. Gila County is included in that. You know, here's what's going on down in the southern part of the state, which is very different than we are here. But it's part of the decision-making process that they're using to come up with these laws. They're trying very hard to get done before the end of the year. I'm just going to quickly go through this here. This is additional information. I just think it's important for you to see how much information they actually have. So they're looking at the entire state as their faucet. And what are the conditions across the entire state? This one just shows where the aquifers are in Arizona. And knowing the type of bedrock or the geology of those aquifers makes a big difference on accessibility and how well it can store that water. This is a big picture to give you a better idea of the water that's out there that has been measurable for decades. These are our neighbors. And right now our governor has committed to the Water Infrastructure Fund money that Chuck Podolak is going to take out of state, out of the 7-state compact to try and find water. So they are really looking for ways to get more water to meet the entire state's needs. These are the wells they have where they're getting all their data. There's 1,450 wells that the state's using to look at what can this state provide to ensure the infrastructure and the population that we have become can continue. And they've got the legal obligations from the national standpoint, you know, with our national security and with the Taiwan Semiconductor and those kinds of things. This is another part of the data they're looking at. Southern Arizona has some fairly deep soils. One reason why their water table has changed, also because it's a little different in how it stores that water that the state's looking to get. These are all dry depleted wells. And as you've heard on the news, this is areas where there's actually land subsidence in the southern part of the state. Another part of that big picture our governor is looking at when she's trying to find where can she get water. She's going to look in the state first. They're already looking out of the state, but they're looking at all areas where they can get water to meet the needs of the state. So it, you know, it's something we need to think about in all of our counties. Those are fissures. So that's a lot of information, but my hope is that you'll take a good look at what we need to look at as a county, as a state, and where our state's going right now in order to meet the needs of the state. You know, they're going to draw. There's our neighboring state, and just as an example, in New Mexico, and this could happen very easily, and it already is happening in some places in Arizona. Chama, New Mexico has a water treatment plant, and there's a very, very large water pipeline that goes all the way up to Colorado, where Pagosa Springs is, into the Rockies, and draws all that groundwater out of that Pagosa Spring piece of the Rockies for the town of Albuquerque. Very large pipeline. And they put it through a treatment plant, and it goes down to Albuquerque. There's nothing to keep that from happening in our state. And our county depends on, we've got the Colorado Plateau Aquifer, they call that the Sea Aquifer. We've got the Mogollon Rim, which feeds Tano Creek. That creates what they call the Mogollon Basin. All of that creates water that seeps down into Gila County for all the wells. And the governor in December of 23 already put in her Arizona Administrative Code direction on where to place wells on the Colorado Plateau for transport of water. So there's a lot of things going on in the background that we're trying to bring it all together to look at the big picture to see what's going to happen next, and is there anything as citizens and as our county supervisors, all of you, is there anything we can do to protect what you have already established for a long time for the citizens of Gila County? And I'll turn it over to Chris to close up on the solution.
We did not want to just bring issues that we're discussing, but also possible solutions for the Board of Supervisors to possibly consider. One would be that the Board of Supervisors might want to get involved with the Rural Working Water Group that we have been meeting with now for a couple years. And there are multiple county supervisors that are involved in that. And they're helping shape the legislation that is being proposed each time. Recently, a bill was stopped because of it. And so we would, one possible solution. Also, that there is no, in regards to that, there in ARS Title 45, there's no protection for us in Gila County, our water. And being involved in that, some of that legislation you might be able to, whether it's a surrogate or you yourselves involved, might be able to help shape some of that legislation. Another option would be also to create a research council, committee of Gila County residents. And they would research any proposed legislation, what it is, and analyze it. And then they would, and how it's going to impact Gila County, and they would provide you that information. in order for you to make whatever decisions you would feel appropriate. And that committee would collaborate with the Rural Water Working Group. With those analysis and recommendations, you would be more informed on continuing the great job that you've done. Let's see, on the next slide, this is just a couple suggestions that would be recommendations to the amendments to SB 1425. One, that they should include the best science, as was just stated a moment ago by Carolyn, that they're using a median, and she was talking about how statistically that can be changed in any way to support one's outcome that they want. That there be transparency in this, that it would include all stakeholders and also the ability of the county or residents to be able to appeal, because once that final decision is made by the director, there is no appeal process. Okay, thank you. Shirley's going to be taking questions and answers.
Shirley Dye, thank you. So,
Yes. Okay, we have 15 minutes.
thanks for the presentation.
Shirley Dye from Payson.
Yes, are
Okay.
you making comments or receiving questions?
I'm making comments first,
Okay,
right? Because I heard we had 45 minutes, and then you guys get Q&A, right?
okay.
So, okay, I've been timing it. All right, so there's all these initial AMAs that were developed back in the 1980s with the Groundwater Act. And Tucson, Phoenix, Prescott, Pinal County, or Pinal, and the Santa Cruz. Well, one of the things that we are working here, the Rural Water Working Group that we've been working with is La Paz County, Mojave County, Yavapai, Coconino, and then us. There's a lot of supervisors, there's a lot of mayors, there's a lot of concerned citizens on that group. We would love to have one of you take on being on these. Right now, we're meeting every other Monday on Zoom calls with updates. We have been working the last year and a half. Every month, we would have a Zoom call that was over a half an hour where we go over all the bills and all that stuff. So previous bills have not included Northern Gila County, the northern counties, but this bill also includes 5 problem basins. Like we've already mentioned, this bill would supplant the AMA that was just imposed upon Wilcox. But there's also the Gila Bend Basin area in Maricopa County, the Hualapai in Mojave County, the Renegras in La Paz County, the San Simeon, which is in a basin that overlaps Graham and Cochise County. It underlies, I should say, the 2-county border. And then, of course, the Wilcox Basin. Part of the initiation of a groundwater basin is that some person in this county, maybe a environmentalist, could come and say, oh my gosh, we need to fix this, and initiate a petition to get 10% of the people to then get a whole election going with hearings and all that, very expensive to run an election to prove it. The other thing is, and I think briefly we went over it, you need to have the governor and the minority and majority leader of the House and Senate. So those 5 people each get 3 referrals, and they get to, then the governor gets to choose from that pool of people who is going to be on our board, our council in Gila County. And since we have 3 major areas, we have the northern basin, we have the central basin, and we have the Globe area basin, and all these other basins and sub-basins like Young, we could end up having 4 councils. Each council has to have an irrigation district, a industrial area, a municipal person, and then, and a member at large. It was on your chart there. So who are we going to get to recommend that the pool for who they're choosing from? It's supposed to be local control. However, in past renditions of the bills, these water councils have superiority over the municipal water users, the irrigation districts, the water companies. So this can end up being a big thing. They will have the power to get grants for conservation and all that. You guys get grants for conservation. These things are very unclear in the legislation of who has what power over what in this particular rendition. It's simplified from the other ones, but what is the underlying camel under the tent, camel's nose under the tent? You know, once they get an inch, they could take a mile. Our biggest things are this particular bill, the one that we have been watching so closely, which is the governor's choice, which we examined last year along with the bill that was going through that was not heard. And they did update it and simplify it for this year. According to our sources down there on the Water Working Group, this has not even been heard in the House or the Senate yet. And it was not expected to because it's still being under negotiation. And it's not just our Rural Water Working Group that's negotiating. It's those other basins that will be immediately put under this law if it indeed goes through. So it could go through on a strike-all and be heard in the joint committees of the House and the Senate and passed out of both committees at the same time and then go on to the governor. Or like she said, she threatened last year that if that last year's bill did not arrive on her desk and she wasn't happy with it, she was going to do executive order and mandate it. So she may just mandate it. It just may be that she's holding it off from going through legislation. So we're concerned about that. So there's a lot of push from the agricultural, huge areas down there in the south part, because big ag is being pushed out because developments and residential housing uses way less water. They're trying to push ag out. Well, it's very possible that some agricultural would end up in Gila County on a bigger scale than the Cook Ranch that's on Highway 188, where they grow their own feed for their cattle. So those are some areas that we're concerned about. Still have 8 minutes. Okay. And we may get some manufacturing to come up here. With all the other IT and everything going on. So the requirements in order to set up a basin management thing are the declining well levels. And the median we have decided is not, you need 10 years of actual readings of actual depth below ground. Subsidence, which I don't know that we've have any subsidence here because our ground is so much more stable than down there. And the water quality. Well, we had Jake Garrett, your county water, the environmental part of the health department, which does all of the sewage issues and especially these septic systems that are that were up by the landmark up there in Christopher Creek. And the groundwater that was overflowing out of their septic system was going through crevices and going into the creek downstream, and they had to trace it all back where it was coming from. And then they had to put in a very, very expensive system there. Now, down in Gila, they have that $250,000 grant that'll only, because the new septic systems are $20,000 to $30,000, and these people that live in these homes down there that have not great value, they can't even sell their homes without taking money out of their home in order to upgrade for the buyer, because that's the way it goes. That's my background 15 years before I moved here was septic systems and sewers. So there is a lot of areas where you have groundwater contamination, and that's one of the three things that someone could come in and say, oh, you know, you're contaminating Tonto Creek. Therefore, we need a basin council. So anyhow, let's see here. March 4th is the day at the Capitol for the Rural Groundwater Working Group. Yep. I have it on my phone here. So anyhow, we would just love to have one or two of you. You don't have to hang out side by side and not be a quorum. But we're going to go down there. They're going to sit through a natural resources, energy, and water meeting. And we're starting in the morning, and it includes lunch, and it's like a 9 to 4. But that is March 4th, and it would be really great if you could join county supervisors from La Paz and Mojave and Coconino and Yavapai and Gila on that working group to go down there and mix and mingle with those other people and find out what their problems are. You have Fondamenti, whatever, the alfalfa growers there in Mojave County that are sucking water out of the Hualapai, and La Paz is where they're transferring water from that 1 acre into Buckeye, and that's one of the basins that's in trouble now. So there's a lot of issues that we would love for you all
Have you
to help us
sent us an
address.
email regarding that March 4th meeting?
Say what?
Have you sent us all an email regarding the March 4th?
I don't know that I've sent that one. I've sent you an awful lot of stuff. We will
Okay.
definitely do it.
All right, thank you.
So, it is time for Q&A.
Okay, jump in. Supervisor Humphrey.
Yeah, my head's swimming. Thank you for all the
I
information.
know, well.
Holy smokes.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, and what wasn't mentioned is like here in southern Gila County is mines. Our mines are using an awful lot of water. They have an awful lot of property just for the wells that are capped off, just in case they need it in the future. So, you know, there's just an awful lot of issues that weren't even brought up. And like I say, my head's swimming with what
Well,
you did
yeah.
bring up. So, you know, and condensing closer into Gila County. And interested, yes, very much about it. But it also seems like, you know, in the politics of the world, the small rural counties don't get listened to because we don't have the votes. I've been fighting issues for 8 years that I've been a supervisor that fall on deaf ears because when you get down to the state, they don't listen to you because you don't have the votes.
Well,
And so I'm not saying that I'm not interested and not going to work hard at it. It's just I've seen a lot of issues with that happening to rural areas, and so we try awful hard. And so I thank you for the information. When I get the invitation, you bet I'll look into it. Supervisor Christensen is already working with the legislature through our CSA. But yeah, thank you for your interest of gathering this information to present to us. I thank you very much.
the first rendition of our PowerPoint had the quote, "Whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting over." Didn't make it into the second rendition. So, anyhow,
Okay, you're just ready to blow up.
No. This issue is older than I am. And so, you know, growing up through all the years, there's always been the threat of monitoring wells and everything like that. It's always been a fight. Quite honestly, it always will be a fight. There is a lot of moving parts to this, an awful lot. You know, and a lot of it is a huge concern of mine, as well as what you ladies and Andrew's talking about and whatnot. So we're all on the same page. You know, being a rural county and things like that, they do look at us with that respect. Here not too long ago, I listened to the speaker down there at the Capitol talk about some water issues. He just hitting on bits and pieces of it and how many bills are going through. That's trying to deal with water and the governor and all that. But the one part of that that really caught my eye that I asked him about was water transfers. And so I know that there's already been attempts for some of that to some extent. What happens, I'm just let you know, is the backdoor deals. You know, when you have SRP, that's a major corporation, and you have ADWR, you have the development communities that just keeps building house after house after house in the desert. And so it's the backyard deals that we're not privy to unless just by accident, and by the time they're made, it's too late. One of the things that hopefully here in time we're gonna be working on is a land management plan for Gila County. And this is gonna be one of the, something that would be a part of that. You know, the other thing that kind of has frustrated me along the way in the last 8 years is we've dealt with developments that I know are pushing the limits on water supply.
Right.
But we have water companies that still giving the certificates. We have no real control over that. We're not water specialists setting up here at this board. We rely on them, and that's who has to give certificates for development, water company. And usually it's a 100-year supply. And it seems to me, and somebody may very well correct me one of these days if I'm wrong, but they hand them out like candy. Well, we all know better, especially in a year like we're having right now. It's a tough year. You know, we don't have the snowpack, and that's what we need.
Right.
Is the snowpack for our water supplies. And so, like I said to start with, there's a lot of moving parts on it. I shouldn't say we. I get a lot of emails every week on water and bills and so forth. There's a lot of people involved with this right now. Our main player in the water part of it has been our CSA, our County Supervisors Association, is on the big committee that's dealing directly with the governor on a lot of this. I've talked to Craig several times about the water issues and what I felt like was my concern. And like you all said, you know, they talk about control, you know, here locally and everything, but I know that's not where they're headed.
No.
I know that in all my heart. They don't want local control. And that to me is a big issue. I've always said if you could bring in the local control, put it on this board, you people sitting out there are the ones we work for. We work for all of you. So if this board isn't doing something to that's right, you have the ability to come in here and raise hell with us until we got it right, you know. But I'm almost positive in the end, it's not going to shake out that way. But it doesn't mean that we don't keep trying and we keep pushing it. And so I really thank you ladies and everybody involved for everything that you've done. You're spot on. What Tim said about the mines is absolutely right. You know, a long time ago when we had a tour of Resolution, they're piping water out of that deep hole down there on the flats around Casa Grande and Coolidge and storing it. My question is okay, that's easy to say. You pump it out of this ground, you know, you're 7,000 feet in the dirt, and you pump it out and you go down there on the flat and you put it back in the ground. That's easy enough, but what makes you think it's going to be there when you need it?
Or if it's a quality.
Well, see, their quality is they need it to wash the tailings all the way to Dripping Springs and back. That's where they really need it. And until they do that, they need a place to store it because their hole fills up with water if they don't pump it out. so they're doing all this, but it's like, you know, I don't know that anybody can be positive that it's gonna stay in one place or be there or whatever. So there's always that, you know, there's a question there. And if it's not there, where are you gonna get the water? You know, so there's a lot of concerns, a lot of questions, a lot of things that in definitely the last 6 years or so that's been kicked around and looked at and talked about, and it's a fight that it will continue. The governor very well may pull the power she has and do an executive order, in which case it'll stand until another governor comes along and redoes it. But but it's not a fight we just give up on and roll over for. We all need to keep up on it, and so. Quite honestly, I'm on so many boards right now, I don't think I could get on another one. But we'll see where it goes. On James. But thank you, Shirley, and thank you, everyone.
We don't want to be an alarmist, but we did want to get your attention, you know, with all like, okay, guys, you better step up.
No,
So-
but the fact is, Shirley, what you don't see is we already have in many different ways.
Yeah.
And so we are a part of it. It's just that, well, there's going to be a lot of negotiations, and I honestly believe it's going to come to an executive order in the end.
Yeah. Steve, I mean,
Okay, I
excuse
have
me,
a few-
Supervisor Christian.
Yeah, thank you. I have a few comments, so. Yeah, thanks, Chris and Carolyn and Shirley. We also have Mr. Costanzo here with us. He's kind of a new member of the group, and so I've known you have been working on water for a long time. Very concerned about it, and I think we have a real history of water concerns in the state going back 100 years or more. That's why we have the CAP. That's why we have the canals and the dams and the reservoirs and all this stuff. It's all because of that. And so as we grow, it becomes more and more concerning. I would love to see the Board of Supervisors have more power over water in the county than we do, which is almost nothing. The state has always controlled it. They're the ones that issue the permits for the wells. The governor wants to solve it all with an executive order, but that's the wrong approach in my opinion, because it's one person deciding what happens in the state, and that's not really the way our government is set up. A representative government is not just the person in the highest office in the building. Socializing the utility is what it looks like to me. It's the saying, well, because we're having trouble, let's let the government step in and take over all water concerns, and you no longer have rights anymore. We'll say it's eminent domain, we'll say it's an emergency, we'll say we're gonna monitor everybody, and the same kind of discussions occur with, are you using too much food? Are you using too much gasoline? Are you using too much electricity? It's a move toward socialism. It's not the solution, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be addressing the solution. My main concern as well is the harvesting of water to go to move out of the county. And that could happen because we have the drainage systems and the reservoirs to just dump it into the Salt River and the Tonto Creek reservoirs, and it ends up in Phoenix. And so we don't want that. So some of what you suggested I think is great. More involvement, more research, having research committee, and indicating amendments to bills that we don't like. The bills that you mentioned I don't think are going to pass, but there's going to be a continuous pressure to create legislation that is going to work in some places and not in others. And so I really do appreciate the presentation. It's very insightful. You guys are very involved, and I will send me the invite, and I'll consider how much involvement I'd like to do with that, and just keep us informed as you keep going, okay? Anything else, Supervisor?
No, I just think it's a huge problem when water transfer, when you go, hey, and ship it out of the country, that's water transfer that's already happening. when you can buy water and store it in Lake Mead, I hope it's on the bottom half, not the top half, because there isn't any in the top half. So, water is a major issue, and I appreciate your interest. I just hope that we can get some ears from some people higher up on the totem pole to help us. So thank you very much.
Anything else?
The only thing else I would throw in there is that the state is so diverse in everything that just one catch-all water bill, or whatever you want to say it, will not work. It just will not work. Every county's needs are basically different that I see. And so, that's just a huge red flag right off the bat, and hopefully somebody will pay attention to that and try and correct it. I would hope, but that's, I think, one of the main messages that we need to drive to people, that, hey, you can do a bill or whatever you want for Wilcox and down there that meets the needs there, but it isn't going to meet the needs up here. And so, I think that's something that our legislatures really need to take serious and pay attention to.
Can you share that with Sullivan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is Katie Hobbs' Management Act. And it sounds marvelous. Local choice, local solutions. Let's see that happen. Yeah. Flexibility, protection, adaptable, customize it. Funding, oh great, and protection of basins. So it all sounds like that's what we all want, but this is not really what she wants to do. She wants to take it and make the choices for you, not local choices. If you want to speak, come on up to the mic. Yeah, Shirley.
May I ask, did you get a chance to see the first rendition of our PowerPoint, which was what was prepared by the attorneys for the governor's office, that gave the whole big breakdown of all? Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Okay, because it gives you more insight also into how this bill is,
Right. Okay. Thank you, Shirley. I appreciate you guys coming down, taking the day. Go have some good lunch. Anything else, supervisors?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all.
All right, thank
Appreciate
you
it.
very much. Let's move on to the next and last item. Item 2C, information discussion regarding the Gila County Courthouse paving project, the Globe Jail paving project, and Gila County Courthouse roof replacement project. Good morning, Joseph.
Good morning, Chairman, Board of Supervisors. Thank you for your continued guidance over our past capital project presentations. Based on your invaluable input, we have refined our approach and have now established recommendations for source funding and preliminary budgets to the following capital projects. The Gila County Courthouse paving project, estimated cost is $1 million, and source funding recommendation is LATCF. The Globe Jail paving project, estimated cost of $500,000, excuse me, and source funding LATCF. And Gila County Courthouse roof replacement project, estimated cost of $450,000, source funding from the general fund, and also a combination of LATCF. With that, an important note is I'd also like to briefly mention one of the board's top priorities, the courthouse electrical infrastructure. Recognizing its importance, we just wanted to note that we are moving forward with that project. It's just in the very early starting stages of architectural design, and of course that's going to be paramount to that project. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Can you tell us what the LACCF means? What is that?
The LATCF is the Local Assistance and Tribal Consistency Fund.
That was the $12 million we got. That's kind of basically same as PILT money.
Okay.
One time money.
Okay, great. Thank you, Joseph. Supervisor Humphrey.
Yeah, One, and it's a minor deal, when we do all this paving and we put new parking places in, that last one that you have right there is a horrible place for a parking place. Because you got cars in like this, and then you put one where any cars that backing out of there can't see. And where we park, it makes it difficult to back out or to swing wide enough to turn in with that one parking place. Other than that, it's gonna be a large job. It's gonna create a lot of chaos.
Yes, sir.
Especially with some of our parking down off below. And so, good luck with the project. I think it's necessary, but it's gonna create some traffic issues, I'm sure.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the feedback. We'll certainly take it into account when we're finalizing the design, and we look forward to this project.
And in the roof, we have parapet walls around the roof, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Our roof project, are we just gonna build another pond, or are we gonna put a pitch up there to where we don't have a flat roof with parapet walls around it?
We appreciate that feedback. That's something that we're still in discussions with the administrative team to see if that's going to fit in with the budget, or if we're going to do a direct replacement of what is existing.
Because if you build another pond, it's gonna leak.
We don't disagree, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
I'm done.
Supervisor Klein.
Joseph, are we able to use some local contractors on these?
It's a high probability for the paving project. We will be looking at outside of the county. We're certainly always open to that, and we're always looking for new companies, whether they can support it. The roofing project, that one's a different one. I think there's a high probability that we're going to be able to use local on that. So it just depends on the prioritization of the timeline and what we're working with. But yes, sir.
'Cause I think Cactus has done quite a bit of paving for us. They're not in the county, but I know that they've done a lot of work. But, you know, for projects like this, it'd be awesome to see if there's somebody local that can do it. Keep the money local.
Yes, sir. Agreed. We can certainly take a harder look.
And then one more question, Mr. Minlove. How much LATCF funds do we have left?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Klein, about $5 million, a little bit over $5 million.
Okay. After these projects are taken out? Or
No, it's about $5.5 million.
right now?
Right now.
Okay.
What it'll be about with these projects would be, well, with the paving and stuff's gonna use about half of that.
Okay. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Joseph. So, yeah, keeping up on all this. So, that's the shortest presentation you have ever made. That's a new record.
Doing our best to set
Yeah,
records, sir.
you're doing great. Thank you. I don't have any questions, so,
I just have one.
okay.
Supervisor Klein brought up Cactus. If you're talking to Cactus about doing the paving, I would definitely vote against them after my guy Gila process with them.
Noted, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. We all good over there? Yeah, okay. All right, so that's all we have on our regular items. So call to the public. Anyone here in Globe? No. Anyone in Payson? No. And anyone on the internet? No. Okay, so let's move on to item 4, which is our presentations. Manager Menlove.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, last week attended the Arizona Local Government Employee Benefit Trust annual meeting. That's a meeting where we review our health insurance trust that we have, health insurance for our employees. Spend most of 3 days in that discussion about health insurance. And the end result is that there was a recommendation from our actuaries for the trust that we have a 5.9% increase in our health insurance costs for fiscal year 25-26. We have been banking some money in the trust the last few years that we've been responsible in how we've approached and addressed it. One of the biggest issues that we have currently regarding cost drivers in health insurance trust is the semaglutides. That's the GLP-1s that are related to, it's what everybody's using to lose weight. The trust only prescribes semaglutides to diabetics. We do not prescribe that drug. It's an injectable. Do not prescribe that drug for just simple weight loss. But it's the latest thing you see. What are the ones that you see on TV of all the commercials of I'm losing weight, I'm doing this and doing that. That's what is driving a lot of costs. It's very expensive, new drugs, and they're trying to open it up that you can use it for other health-related issues of helping heart attacks and stuff like that. We only do it for diabetics, very specific, that we can hopefully try to control costs of that. Instead of the 5.9% recommended increase, because we have been able to manage our health insurance costs, the increase will be 4.5% for fiscal year 25-26 on our health insurance. We do pass a small portion on to employees. That's typically same percent like employee only, maybe a 90%, 10%, 90% covered by the county, 10% covered by the employee. So whatever that split maintains, or whatever that split is to maintain that split of a 90-10, 77, 23%, we maintain those splits of who contributes the cost. So there is a small cost increase to employees, and a little bit more increase if they have employee and family coverage. Certainly can, that'll be coming up in our budget discussions that you have with Finance Department and that. But that is the result of our Arizona Local Government Employee Benefit Trust meeting last week. This week I am going to Flagstaff for a couple days for training of government accountants. I maintain my certified public accountant credential, and that is a part of that. On Friday, Sherry and I will be traveling to Washington, D.C., again, as mentioned last week, to try to get a little bit firmer grasp of what is happening in Washington, D.C. with a change in administration and different things that we can expect, particularly in financial and grants and things like that. I had a discussion yesterday with folks from Washington of what is going on and what kind of things that we can potentially expect in financial. So we'll be in Flagstaff next couple days and in Washington, D.C. through next Wednesday, as allowed for in county policy. Mr. O'Driscoll, Deputy County Manager, is given authorization to act as county manager while I am out of the county. That's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Humphrey.
Yeah, I held a Gila community meeting on the 22nd. I want to thank staff for showing up. We had, Homero was there, we had engineering there, we had the SO showed up, and so it was a good meeting. I appreciate staff being willing to go to Gila on Saturday, and Terry for taking notes. I'll hold a public works staff and directors meeting on the 26th, and there again, I like to meet with everyone to talk about what's going on in District 2 and where we're at with it, introduce new projects, see where existing projects are going. I'll hold a southern Gila County preseason fire meeting, and it's not preseason because we never got out of fire danger. And that's not, to divide north and south. It's just, when I got elected, I started having meetings down here because one, we have a completely different environment than the northern part does. And also two, to help get everybody on the same page down here, Gila County, DPS, ADOT. And so, and Forest Service comes and our local fire departments come, and it just helps us get everybody on the same page. And also, if we do have lightning strikes and things of this nature, everybody understands which are going to be our worst areas if we end up having to fight a fire. and also to help with evacuation. It's amazing. When we had our first meeting, there was, the county was willing to put water tanks and things if needed them, but I mean, nobody even knew which hoses fit which trucks, and so, things like that. And our first couple meetings, we didn't even think about evacuation, and then all of a sudden that came in when we had a fire, and so it really helps to get everybody on the same page with emergency management. So if we do have a fire, we know, what part of the fairgrounds we can use for animals and things of that nature. And so, it really helps. And I understand you had yours too. So, yeah, it just helps, I think, to get our emergency staff all on the same page. So I'm looking forward, to that. And so then, let's see, and then I'll hold a Tonto Basin Community Meeting on the 4th at 5 p.m. So I thank you very much,
Very good.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, start with a few days ago, I met with Janet Dean with APS. Here a couple of years ago, they started that public safety power shutoff project, and basically what that is when indices start showing that we're in extreme fire danger, which was based on humidity, temperature, timing, and fuel conditions, they would start entertaining the fact of shutting power lines off. And so she had requested a meeting with me, and I visited with her, and because of the type of year that we're having, there's a real good chance that can happen this summer. And it's not only APS, I believe SRP are picking up some lines as well. Their areas are starting to expand more and more. And so it's probably gonna get to the point here pretty quick, especially in the northern part and places like the Pinals, maybe on some of your Roosevelt country, Tim. But anyway, it might come to the point pretty quick where we need to help start getting the word out so people could somewhat be prepared. The power shutoffs could be a few hours to who knows how long. And the problem is, and there's a lot of people out there that rely on that electricity for medical equipment to run or whatever. And if you're talking about the middle of June, temperatures in the middle of June are pretty hot, things of that nature. So it's going to be a real hardship on a lot of people if this does actually come to happen. So I think, I thought a lot about this. I've been working with APS and the Forest Service here quite a bit, and I think we're on the right route. APS, and I believe I've talked about in this meeting before, is APS on their right-of-ways, on their power lines, it's only 20 feet. Well, that's like from me to Terry. And so in the pine type, where the biggest concern is you have a right-of-way that's 20 feet that they work on. They keep it open and cleaned out. But beyond that, it's heavy fuel loadings and everything. But you have 120-foot pine trees beside it. So they can still reach the power lines if something was to blow one over or whatever and cause problems. In all of my years, I don't believe I remember ever having a fire off of the secondary APS lines. We had fires off of the big KV lines that you see going through the country. One side is APS and one side is SRP. And in the summertime, they'll stretch and arc out, and we've had several fires from them, but not really the secondary lines. But neither here nor there. My goal is to work with APS and the Forest Service to try and widen these right-of-ways, maybe to a couple 100 feet, and get them cut back and opened up so they have the room that a tree can't reach the lines, or if a line falls, they have the room and the latitude to make a run at it and catch it before it gets into the heavier fuel. So trying to work on that, but that's down the road, and that isn't gonna help this spring. And so we have that ahead of us. I attended an ECO meeting last Wednesday and the CSA board meeting on Thursday. I did that by Zoom. Really, there's so much up in the air with this new administration. I don't know that you could even outguess where we're really headed right now. So, and what's going to happen. Everybody's just kind of sitting back, waiting for the dust to settle and see where we're at. I think that's going to be the case for a while. We'll just have to see. Another big concern is like the Forest Service, probably the state to some amount. A big question is their firefighters this spring and how many they're going to have and if they're going to have. I honestly believe they're going to have them. Somebody will shake loose and say, no, you're going to have to hire them. Let's go. Let's get it done. I think that'll happen, but some other people aren't real sure. So I think we'll just have to hang back and see. Me and Kathy are headed to DC tomorrow. We'll fly out to DC. I've got meetings on the Hill with Ruben Gallegos, Senator Kelly, and Congressman Crane on Thursday. And then my meetings will start on Friday and Saturday, and then we'll be returning on Sunday. So that's where I'm at this week.
Izzy, thanks for that. So I don't have a lot to report other than I did meet with the water group last Thursday, so this was a rerun. And so appreciate all their efforts. And let's see, it seemed like there was something I was going to say, but anyway, just looking forward to this week and keep them busy with some things. So I don't have much to report today. Jessica, do you have anything today? No? You're kind of looking like...
I have no authority to speak at this time.
You want some?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, then I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.